Welcome to the recap of 8th game of the FIDE World Chess Championship between Liren White, Jan Nepomniachtchi Black. After 7 games, Jan leads with a margin of 1 point. This is a crucial game. We shall see whether Ding can bounce back or Jan extends his lead. Ding is white, Jan is black. Ding starts with d4 after knight f6, c4, a6, knight c3. Black played bishop b4, the Nimzo-Indian defense for the first time in this match. Nimzo-Indian is named after the famous player Aaron Nimzowitsch, who was one of the great theoreticians and philosophers of chess of the previous century. And this is considered to be one of the very sound defensive systems by Black. Basically, with knight c3, White was threatening to take center, to seize the center with his pawns. After bishop b4, Black prevents White's e4 because the knight on c3 is pinned. And unlike the queen's gambit declined, which is d5, even here Black prevents White from pushing e4. But in the Nimzo-Indian, Black keeps his pawns flexible. He can later arrange his pawns, play d6, e5, or delay the pawn advance according to the needs of the situation. He can play c5, he can play b6, he can play f5 in some situations. So Black has a host of options later which he can choose from according to the demands of the position. Here White played the modest move e3, which is called the Rubinstein system against the Nimzo-Indian. Well, it's a very modest system, but it is the most popular White's response against the Nimzo-Indian. Black played castles, and this is a point where White played a very aggressive and double-edged move. He chose the move a3 instead of more conservative moves like knight f3 or bishop d3. The move a3 forces Black to take the knight, but apparently a3 loses time because the general guideline of opening systems is one has to develop pieces quickly and towards the center. Here White invests one move, forces Black to give up his bishop for a knight, so we have a dynamic imbalance. And we also have a cluster of pawns in the center, towards the center. This is a double pawn, but this pawn strengthens the d4, and we have an extra pawn towards the center for White. And as we shall see that in future, the game will be very interesting. And the fact that White has not played knight f3 has a deeper idea which White will execute in this game. Black continued d6. Well, now we see one of the advantage of restraining, of not playing d5. Here, since the pawns are doubled, Black does not play d5, which allows White to undouble his pawn by exchanging. Instead, he plays d6. And since he does not have a dark square bishop, Black aims to put all his pawns on the dark squares so that his other bishops can be free, and the dark squares, White's bishop, dark square bishop, can be restricted by his own pawns on the dark squares. And here White reveals the plan behind the move a3. By the way, the move a3 is called the Zemisch variation against the Nimzo-Indian. Zemisch was also a German player. Yeah, after sixth move, White played knight e2. Now, this is one of the ideas, one of the reasons why White delayed the knight development from f3. In this particular system, since white has an extra pawn in the center, he would like to typically advance his pawns and overwhelm black by advancing his pawns. And for that reason, he develops his knight from e2, because the knight doesn't want to come in front of the f pawn. The knight would be placed well on g3, from where it can coordinate the kingside attack. And another point to note is, since we have an imbalance where white has a dark square bishop against black's knight, white will try to prove that his bishop is more dangerous than black's knight, and black will try to restrict the bishop. So we have a very interesting fight which is coming up after knight e2. Black played c5, immediately fixing the double pawns. Now this pawn will be subject to attack and pressure by black. Since white does not have a pawn on b2, he cannot defend the c pawn by playing b3. The pawn has been doubled. This pawn is weak. White continues with his plan of playing knight g3. Black played knight c6. And here was a real surprise by white. He played the move Rook a2, which is a totally unconventional move. What is the idea behind this move? Well, any other player here would have played a move like e4 or bishop d3 with the idea of castling and advancing the pawns, f4, e4, and so on. But here white played Rook a2, a surprising move with the idea of already white is visualizing that he will attack on the king side, and he wants to shift his rook all the way to g2 or h2. At this point, it looks improbable, but as we shall see later in the game, white really played skillfully and he did get chance to shift his rook to h2. So it's a very deep plan. I think white had prepared this plan in advance. Black played b6. So he is very consistent with his plan of pressurizing the c4 pawn. He would play bishop a6, maybe knight a5, and rook c8, putting pressure on the c pawn and perhaps winning it. White played e4. Black played bishop a6. So we have a dynamically imbalanced game. Black attacking on the queen side, white trying to attack in the center and on the king side. White played bishop g5. Now he's showing his teeth. My bishop is better than your knight. You don't have the dark square bishop. Had black a bishop on e7, this bishop g5 would not be dangerous. But without this bishop, now this knight is pinned, and white would love to increase pressure on the knight by playing knight h5. And then if black passes move, if black plays some indifferent move, white would capture this knight with his bishop after knight h5, damage the pawn structure, and then follow up with queen g4 check and queen g7 checkmate with the help of knight. So this is white's plan. He plays bishop g5 with the idea of damaging black's pawn structure on the king side. Now let's see how black responds. Black played h6 immediately. He doesn't wait for white to play knight h5. Now if white goes back, black would play g5, trapping the bishop. So here white played another amazing move, that is h4. He sacrifices his bishop to open the h line for the rook. Now we have a real fight with white going hammer and tongs against black. He is trailing the match by 1 point, so he wants to desperately attack and equalize. Here black took hg5. He accepted the challenge. Otherwise, white would follow up with his intended plan, knight h5 and bishop f6. So he takes this, white takes this, black played g6. Now this is a very instructive moment. I can show you some hypothetical lines to demonstrate what white is aiming for. Now white is a piece down, but he has a dangerous line against black's king. And white would dream to have his queen on h5, but at the moment the knight on f6 is preventing white's queen from coming to h5. So let's see some of the moves, how the game could have continued. Here black played g6, preventing these type of ideas. But had black continued with an indifferent move and attacked the c pawn, in this position white would probably play something like rook d2. It's an amazing move with the idea of pushing e5. See, if white takes f6 at once, black would capture the f6 pawn with his queen. And if white plays queen h5, black can still defend by playing queen h6. And here, well, by going for endgame, black will escape the pressure and perhaps he will take the c pawn with a decent position. So that is why white should attack with moves like rook d2 with the intention of playing e5 and capturing the knight in such a manner that the queen can't switch over to defense. Now here, black would play g6 with the aim of, well, probably switching to defense after capturing knight on f6 with queen. And here white would play a move like gf6, queen f6, and the rook would transfer to the king side by playing rook d3. And in this position, I would like to show a hypothetical line. If black takes bishop c4, white would play a brilliant move, knight h5. With the idea, the rook would transfer to the king side, and if black captures on h5, white would play rook g3 check, followed by queen h5, checkmate. The king has to move here, and then white would checkmate. So the other move is, of course, black would have to give up his queen, and white would get a winning position. But this demonstrates, or this illustrates white's ideas in this particular line. So that is why white had played the brilliant piece sacrifice, and black defended by playing g6, not going for this pawn. White captured knight, black took back with a queen. Now it is white's turn. If black manages to stabilize the position, he will gradually take over the initiative and attack white's weakened pawns. And remember, white's king is still in the center. While black's rooks are connected, white will take quite a few moves to connect the rooks. So it seems again black is doing good. But white hit immediately by playing e5, attacking the queen. Another pawn sacrifice. Black took de5, and now it was a major decision by white. He played d5, attacking the knight. Instead, he could have opted for knight e4. Well, the move e5 has basically vacated the e4 square for white knight. So after de5, he could have played knight e4. A possible variation could have been queen f4 by black, attacking the knight. White would develop his bishop to d3, defending the knight, and perhaps aiming on the king side. If black takes bishop c4, it looks quite powerful because it diverts the bishop or deflects the bishop so that black could capture the knight with a check. White would play g3 first, moving the queen away from uh, the good f4 square. It has to go to f5, and now the move which demonstrates white's main idea behind rook a2, that is the brilliant move f3. Well, the idea is to shift the rook to h2 and swing the rook to h2 and deliver a checkmate on h8. Well, the point is, white could have played queen d2 with the idea queen c6, queen h6. But after queen d2, black can actually play bishop d3 and divert the queen from going to h6. Because if it goes at once, black will play queen e4 check. Therefore, queen d2 at once fails to win. So the move we have is f3, swinging the rook and going for checkmate. If black captures the rook, then white plays queen d2. There is no bishop d3 anymore. And now in this position, it seems black can still defend, but just so. By playing queen f3 check, queen h6 threatens checkmate. And here the only way for black to defend is by giving up his queen. Even in this position, black has two rooks for a queen, and the game will probably end in a draw after moves like, say, bishop d5, queen h6, threatening knight f6 checkmate, and after bishop e4, the knight is attacked. When black defends, white goes for bishop g6 with an eventual perpetual check. So this line demonstrates the type of attack which white can generate after moves like knight e4 and swinging his rook from the queen side to king side. But in the game, first white played d5, attacking the knight, and here black retreated knight e7. Perhaps there was a point in playing rook d8 for one move, waiting for white's response before deciding on whether to go for counterattack or whether to go for defense. But in the main game, in the main game, black played knight e7 right away. White went d6, black played knight f5, and now white played knight e4. Well, the knight on f5 may be misplaced in certain lines. For instance, the most obvious move for black is queen g7, keeping the queen near the king for defense. But this is a mistake because white can play g4, attacking the knight. And the knight has no decent square to go. If it goes to h6, white can further advance g5, attacking the knight and creating a strong support square on f6. After knight f6, for instance, white will play a knight f5, white can play a knight f6 check, forcing black to give up his queen. Well, this could have been one of the ways how the game could have ended. But after queen g7, g4, black does have a creative defense, bishop b7, attacking the knight, after which white would play bishop g2. And the final position is still better for white because he has good attacking chances and the queen is out of play. It's purely a defensive piece now. Well, in the game after knight e4, black played a very cool move, that is queen d8, and it was played after only 8 seconds of thought. So black had prepared this defense. After white played queen d3, this move was played after 14 minutes of thought by white. So if we remember, Liren frequently falls in time pressure, and in the last game, he blundered when he was short of time. Despite playing very good game, he lost in the previous game. So he has a tendency to overthink at times. He played queen d3. He took 14 minutes for this move. His idea is to swing on queen h3 and deliver a checkmate on h8. Black played king g7 immediately so that he can challenge on the h file. And here, if white goes for queen h3, black will challenge, and any endgame would actually favor black because of the weak pawns which white has. If white cannot deliver a mating attack, then the endgames or stable positions would definitely be better for black, because he would then start attacking white's weak pawns and get a good position. So after king g7, white went for attack g4, threatening the knight. Black went for counterattack bishop b7. Now his aim is to play ef5 after white captures gf. This knight is pinned and we have a very strong dominating bishop. So that is why bishop b7 is a good move. And here black even threatens knight d6 because the knight on e4 is pinned. Well, here white played another nice move, that is rook h3. So both the players are on fire. White is trying to checkmate, black is counterattacking. Rook h3. He moves his rook away from the pin, and now the knight is threatened. Black goes knight h4 after 20 minutes thought. And white, well, black is threatening to play f5, dislodging the knight from this post. And well, black will have a great counterattack because the rook will be opened. Well, it's now up to white to find a solution. He played g5 immediately. Within 11 seconds, he found this move, g5. Now, one of white's ideas is, of course, to immobilize this pawn. It can't move to f5. And to create a support square on f6, and also to attack the h4 knight, which doesn't have support with his queen. So it is here that in such pressure, black finally blundered. Black missed a move, and he should have played rook h8 defending. The game would have been equal. Well, unclear, but both sides would have equal chances. But black captured the e4 knight. When white recaptured, he put his knight on f5 with the idea of challenging the rook on h file, and with the idea of meeting queen e5 check with f6. Well, here if white captures queen e6, black will skewer the queen. And if white takes gf6, black will take back. And as I said previously, any endgames would be satisfactory for black. So black is trying to go head towards this endgame. But what he missed is a brilliant resource by white. White played rook d2. Well, it's a deceptively simple move. The idea is that if black captures on g5 now, then white will capture queen e5. So it is hard to believe that queen e5, one move ahead previously, was equal. But now, after rook d2, queen g5, queen e5 check is decisive. White is winning because black cannot defend the check by queen f6. We have rook h7 check, deflecting the king away from the defense of the queen. And if black plays f6, white would play a brilliant move, that is queen h2, with the intention of playing rook h7 check. Now the normal reply, rook h8, fails to the tactics. Rook h8, and now the queen sacrifice, queen h8, king h8, d7. and the poor queen is blocked by the pawn. It can't go to d8. It can't prevent white from promoting. Note that black cannot counterattack with any checks. So this was a brilliant resource planned by white. So you see, in the whole game, there are plenty of blows and counter blows from either side. So after rook d2, black played rook h8, which was a mistake, but it's quite understandable. Now white took rook h8, queen h8, and he went for d7. So here it is white's turn to make a mistake. This is another very critical moment. White could have won by playing rook d3. This was a very simple move with the idea of transferring the rook to h3, and a move like, say, rook d8, bringing the rook in front of this pawn, would fail to rook d3 check, queen f8, queen e5 check. This was one of white's main ideas. Now the king can't go here because there is a checkmate on h8, and black can't play f6 because we have typically gf6, queen f6, and again the same deflection sacrifice, rook h7. So the move d7 played by white was a mistake. So black blundered, white also missed an elementary win by playing rook d3. Still the position is better for white. Black played rook d8 and white took queen e5 check. And after king h7, white repeated moves twice, so he gained time on the clock. He In this time control, white has to make 40 moves within 2 hours. So till now he has made 29 moves, so he repeated the moves, and if he repeats 3 times it's a draw. But white played it twice and then played queen c7, which is a good move. White maintains pressure. Black played, well, if black plays passively, white would calmly pick up all the pawns on the queen side, and he would have a clearly better position. So black, instead of defending passively, went for counterattack by sacrificing his rook. So we have seen so many sacrifices in this game, and now comes another sacrifice. Black plans to give up the whole rook in order to counterattack and draw. It is here on 32nd move white made another blunder. That is, well, if you are a student of chess, and if you want to improve your calculations, I would highly recommend you calculating this position and finding whether white can win after accepting the challenge, queen d8. Well, actually, queen d8 was indeed a winning move. Black had sacrificed, but white should have accepted the challenge. Now queen e4 looks very scary. If white plays bishop e2, black can simply repeat the position by playing check. The bishop has to come back, and we have the same position. So the winning idea for white, okay, another move is king d1. Again, black can simply repeat the position by playing a perpetual check. The only move for white here is rook e2. And here queen b1 check, king d2 is the only move. Well, here white is a rook up and is threatening to promote his pawn. So black has to do something now immediately. He can't wait, he has to keep on checking. Check. Well, if the king goes back, black will repeat. So king has to go up. Now check. Once again, rook c2 blocking the check. And now whether black plays queen f1 check, king d2 check. Well, king d2, knight d6. This looks very scary. Well, if black plays queen f2, white king will escape and he will have an absolutely winning position. So instead of queen f2, he has to play knight d6 with the threat of checkmate. Now black doesn't have time to promote. but by playing queen f6 check. But he has a very nice way to finish the game. That is by playing queen h8 check. It's decoy. It's bringing the king to the last rank so that white can promote his pawn and with a check. Now when the king moves up, white will capture the knight and black simply does not have enough resources to defend. So this was one very nice way to um, win. And after rook c2, instead of playing queen f1 check, black could also try queen d1 check. After that, white's king would move up. And this is indeed a scary position where it seems black is having a very dangerous position because he can play knight c4 check. But indeed, after this, and white promotes his queen, knight c4, king f4. Well, black once again does not have any further checks, and white is about to checkmate black or exchange the queens. So this was a winning position for white. He should have captured on d8, but it seems the pressure of world championship and, well, perhaps there was a small miscalculation or white must have missed something. He instead opted for safety of his king before continuing his attack. Black played queen g5. He took this pawn and defended the rook. So it seems black has managed to defend. White moves his king further up. Black went queen e7. The passed pawn on d7 still ties down black's pieces, but it seems black is defending well. White played bishop g2. One of his ideas is to put the bishop on c6 so that the d pawn is defended and free the queen so that it could capture the rest of the pawns and white could create a fresh attack or fresh weakness in black's position. Well, black played e5, white went bishop e4, trying to move the knight away. The knight went to h6, white captured one pawn. The knight came to g4. Here, white could have improved his king position, which would have given him real winning chances, because in certain endgames, after the queens or rooks are exchanged, the white's king could move up later. But instead, he played bishop f3 with the aim of pushing the knight back so that he could play bishop c6, tying down black to defense, and then he would gradually capture the pawn and start advancing the a pawn. However, black came up with another brilliant resource. He sacrificed his knight. He played knight f2, which is an amazing defense. After white captured rook f2, black played e4, and this is a really instructive position because look at what black is aiming. After rook e2, he goes for f5. So he's restricting the bishop by putting all the pawns on the same square of the bishop. Although he's a piece down, he has three connected passed pawns for the bishop, and the bishop is restricted. White captured the pawn, black captured this pawn. White went for queen b8 with the aim of maybe getting some mating attack, rook h2. Note the e pawn is pinned. Black cannot capture on f3 yet. Black played a very safe move, that is queen to d6, moving his queen away from the pin and offering to exchange the queens. White has to take this and move his bishop away. Now, if he moves his bishop away, black's king would advance, and it seems that both the pieces are so passive that at some point black's passed pawns would advance and they would overwhelm white's pieces. Therefore, white opted for a safe move, that is bishop e4. After f e4, rook e4, we have liquidated to an absolutely drawn rook and pawn endgame. Black played king f6, white went rook e8, and at this point, both the players realized they have no practical winning chances. Well, the players agreed for a draw. Now, if we analyze this uh, position, from here, if black tries to advance his pawn, a possible variation could be something like g5. White would advance his pawn and divert the rook from d file so that the king could come up and either defend or attack on c5. So that is one of the ways how the game could end in draw. And that is why the players agreed for a draw in this position. So we have just seen how wonderful the play had been from either side. Yes, both sides missed their chances, but they took risks, they sacrificed pieces, they went all out for attack. And if you take risks, you will create mistakes and you will create lively games. So I can say I have never seen such interesting world championship in my life so far. So kudos to both the players, Ding Liren of China and Ian Nepomniachtchi from Russia. Whoever wins, chess will definitely be a winner from this world championship. Thanks for watching. We shall be back again with another highlights after round 9 of the world championship. Thanks.